all over-optimized roads will lead to spam. When we're building a brand, none of us want to be the brand that everybody's like, oh, I've seen that crap. They just spam the crap out of me. Nobody wants to be identified like that.
Shane Rickard, CEO of the Harmon Brothers, the renegade marketer behind the legendary Squatty Potty ads.
AI, I think, is a huge risk. I think this all the time. You're so excited that you didn't stop to think if you should. I think you should stop to think if you should when you use AI. The tool is so powerful, and without like good constraints and good vision for what you want to do with your brand, I think it's really easy to go down that route. It's like Pandora's box. I feel like we're at Web 1.0 of the AI revolution. I was testing ChatGPT saying like, give me a specific, like a simile-based comparison joke for this type of product in the voice of a specific comedian. And it was shocking.
No hustle, worship here, we're a different breed. Action is what we got if action is what you need. Content capitalists, we're breaking the mold. Cause the old ways fade, new stories to be told. So content capitalists, get to the prize.
This is the Content Capitalist Podcast, and my name is Ken Okazaki. There are as many ways to make money with content as there are people doing it. So listen in as my clients, past, present, and future, unpack how they crack the code to making $1 million a year or more while capitalizing on their content. Let's get started. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Content Capitalist Podcast. Today I've got a special guest with me, and what's interesting is that some guests come on the show because we've been friends. Many of them are my clients. And Shane came in a completely different way because I've been studying this for a while. This is a concept. It's a book. It's a viral video. It's a lot of things wrapped into this concept around unicorns pooping ice cream. And I met Shane because he came to my booth. I was hosting a booth at a marketing conference where I'm selling my GoBox studio, right? And we had a conversation, and he says, hey, I'm from the Harmon Brothers. I'm the CEO. I'm just like, holy crap. When it comes to creating content at a commercial level, you're pretty much the person I look up to the most, because you take what I would call a pedestrian product or an idea and turn it into comedy, desire, and action that happens in a very, very short amount of time. Now, I'm going to let you talk. Don't worry, Shane. I was looking through his books. It was right on my shelf. I bought the hardcover one, the most expensive one. And I see at the time of the book, you're the creative director. And yes, I would like to hear about your journey there and then on to becoming the CEO right now a little bit. But quickly, let us know real quick, what do you do as a CEO of Harmon Brothers?
Yeah, I mean, so as the CEO of Harmon Brothers, I kind of oversee like the previous CEO, Benton Crane. He was very much so an operations guy. He was very much so like in the business development side of the business. And I was always on the creative track, like you mentioned, Ken. I was a creative director who had worked on a lot of the campaigns as either a director or as a creative director or writer. And I had always been on that side of the business. And so when Benton left the company about a little over a year ago, and I got instated as the CEO, like I was very much so like very transparent with the partners, and was just like, I'm going to come in and I still want to be, I want to be a creative CEO where I'm very much so involved in the creative day-to-day process, are making sure that as we're training new talent and as we're expanding, that we continue to maintain that really like strong heritage that we have with a lot of our campaigns. And so I've been able to stay fairly in the creative game, because that was one of my biggest fears stepping into this role, is that I would lose that ability to be involved in the day-to-day creative, and I'd get lost in a lot of the bureaucracy and a lot of the, the day-to-day operational stuff. But I have a really amazing head of operations at my company that's just been able to take care of a lot of those things, so I can focus in and stay at the core creative level of the company and be able to work there. So I'm pretty spoiled in that sense, because I know sometimes the CEOs, you get in there and a lot of the stuff you're starting to do is a lot more very high level and not very much in the weeds. So I get a little bit of both, where I get to be in the weeds with my team and building campaigns for people and helping out in the creative process, as well as like on a high level strategy point level, like where are we going with the company? What are we doing next in the next realm of our evolution?
Okay. Yeah. CEO like requires a lot more than, has your workload doubled, tripled, or is it pretty much the same and you're focusing in different ways from when you were creative director?
It's definitely, yeah, it's definitely gotten a heavier workload for sure. It's just a different like additional workload that I wasn't doing before is now in the mix. So
Mm.
it's just I'm just grateful that I can do both and not have to be relegated to be like, hey, sorry, man, you're the CEO now. You don't get to do any creative stuff because I think if I did, my like desire to be at the company would just plummet
Yeah.
because I came in wanting to do creative and like
Mm.
what the Harmons were doing at the time was just so innovative and so fun and exciting, and being able to see such explosive growth with a lot of the campaigns they were doing was just like something I wanted to be part of. I wanted to be in the middle of it. I wanted to understand that process. I wanted to better that process. So I really, to me, that's like the core of why I love doing what I do. And I didn't want to lose touch with that and become more of a 10,000 foot administrator or high level strategic voice only, but really still stay close to that creative part of the business.
That's perfect. Now, I think a lot of the questions people would usually ask have already been asked, but I'd like to ask you personally, personally was the most rewarding project that you worked on where you're the creative lead?
Oh man, that's so tough. That is a tough question. I've actually never been asked that one before, so props to you right there. Um, I think that some of the work that I was able to do for Kodiak Cakes is probably the campaign, the ongoing efforts we're doing with them is probably the one I have the most like pride in, mostly because the team at Kodiak Cakes, they're actually based right here in Utah in Park City, and they are every bit as cool of a group of guys as you would expect to be like a Park City based like outdoor kind of lifestyle food company. And we were able to just have huge impact, and like it was a deeper level of healthy integration with the client, than deeper than probably any other client we've worked with, and it was a really healthy ongoing relationship that was just like so fun. It was a blast to work with. I mean, we also got a film with a grizzly bear, which was pretty amazing and like kind of a once in a lifetime opportunity. It was the same bear that was on Game of Thrones, with a Brienne of Tarth and has been in all these movies. And that's also randomly located just about 20 minutes up the canyon from us here at Provo. But yeah, I think that one was really cool too because they were going through an acquisition with a private equity firm, and we were able to have a really positive impact on the trajectory of the business, and through some of the marketing efforts we had, and just I guess again that partnership with a really cool client, and really mutual respect, and like we had a really great working relationship with them, which is, I mean, Ken, you know this. It's like sometimes it's like it's rare to have like a relationship where you're like, man, I'm so pumped to go talk to this client every like 10 times out of 10. But that's how I felt every time, I picked up the phone and talked to their CMO or talked to their head of acquisition. It was like, I was never like, it was never a dreaded phone call, if that makes sense. Even if there was tough stuff to discuss or it's things that we had to overcome, it was like a really, really fun, healthy relationship, which made the creative work that much more satisfying. And it was probably one of the biggest like impacts to their bottom line that I was able to have from a creative director and a director side of the business. Like that one was huge for me, and like being able to see them explode in the way that they did.
Wow, I love that. And yeah, that really is a dream in any type of agency work, is actually loving to do the work and having the company of your clients who are paying you money to do this.
Yeah.
Now, if anybody who's listening or watching this on YouTube doesn't know yet, then just go Google Harmon Brothers or look it up on YouTube, and you'll see a lot of their creative work. And the thing that you guys have a bit of a cult following for people who may have never bought your products, but they love the combination of the fast action, the quirky concepts, the humor, and I think there's always some level of unbelievability in each one. It's just like, no, like suspended disbelief. That's the word I'm looking for. So, what I'd like to ask you, secondly, is which, leading up to Squatty Potty, which was probably the one that really put you on the map, and then since then everything's been going pretty well. What do you think made the difference with that one compared to everything else you did before? Why did that one put you on the map more? And did something change during that process?
I mean, so I was at the time, I actually wasn't at Harmon Brothers, but so here's a quick little backstory when they did Squatty Potty. So I actually worked with three of the brothers at a different startup called Brush, which was like kind of this tongue cleaner way back in the day. This is like old
That's
school,
when Devin
like
Supertramp shot, right?
yeah. So Devin like was very much so in that circle of like filmmakers in the Utah
Mhm.
community. He was actually roommates with Jeff Harmon, one of our founders, in
Ah.
college. So there was this kind of weird, like everybody was in the mix at this point in time, but I worked with them at Brush around the Devin Supertramp era. I like did a couple of video collaborations when I was at Brush with him for a couple of products we had. And so I like very much so knew like that was kind of the seeds of like that like process of like building online videos for customer acquisition. It was very, very early on in YouTube where they had just barely started to do like introducing like skippable ads. And like Harmon Brothers, we actually had an ad buyer here who actually was instrumental in developing the skip button in general, like in actually saying like actually making a suggestion for this to the YouTube engineers at the time, which they were like, oh yeah, we'll go run them with this, you know. And now it's like on half of the ads that are on YouTube, thank goodness, so we don't have to sit through them all. But like that was like really early on where we were developing a lot of those tactics. And kind of speaking of the skip button, that was like a core part of what we believed. Like advertising is disruptive to what people are trying to do online. Like people are trying to watch a YouTube video or they want to watch a tutorial, and we're interrupting what they want to do. And so we have to make content that's so good that it earns their time and attention to where even if they have the opt-out option to skip, they choose not to because they can't believe what they're watching. They can't believe what they're seeing. Or it's just interesting and engaging enough that they want to continue to do it, and they're okay postponing watching the content that they really do want to see. And so that was kind of the seeds of it at Brush. And then they went off and left Brush. They did their poopery video first.
They were actually like before they got into this creative agency space, they were actually in like a dental care business.
Yeah, they were basically like the marketing engine behind it, like behind this like small dental care startup company. So they had learned a lot of things on building the Brush product and selling it direct to consumer online, as far as funnel building, as far as like ad buying on YouTube. Because at the time, Facebook, believe it or not, didn't even have video ads you could buy when we were doing it at that time. So it was primarily YouTube, right? And so they went and left the company to do an engagement with Poopery. And I don't know if you saw that video, but that one went absolutely bananas. And that one wasn't necessarily underneath the banner of Harmon Brothers per se. It was underneath.
Okay, I was always confused about that.
Yeah, it's a little tricky.
Yeah.
Yeah. They did engagement where they were going to become the marketing arm of Poopery, and like they're going to be a part of the company, similar to how they were with Brush. The whole thing just kind of it didn't work out the way that they wanted it, so they kind of spun off, and then a couple of the brothers and Benton Crane, who was the previous CEO, they formed Harmon Brothers the agency, and so they took all those learnings, but back at Brush as well as Poopery. And we're able to kind of put that into an agency format where like we can find really good brands that have some of these X factors of either things that people aren't willing to talk about that are taboo, or there are things that are really novel or that are very disruptive, but haven't been able to find a way to like convey the message of their product in a way that really breaks through in an interesting way. Like, because for instance, like Squatty Potty knew that they had a product that was kind of funny to talk, or hard to talk about. It was kind of like
anything
taboo.
to do with the toilet is can't be turned into a joke.
Yeah, and so they tried several things, and like some of them were like kind of like they tried a crack at humor, and none of them really stuck.
There was a
like,
skeleton sitting on the toilet, right? That was their old website.
Yeah, they had a ton of different ones, and they were primarily marketing it to people who had like bowel issues, not necessarily general consumers, right? And so I think specifically for Squatty Potty, that was the turning point, was that they were like, because at Harmon Brothers, we test out every single product that we market, and we have to believe in it. And I would even say we've gotten crap for this over the years, where we'll push back pretty heavily on companies to like, hey, this aspect of the product isn't great. And I'm sure it's lost us business. Like, it straight up has lost us business when we're kind of kicking against pieces of the product, because we have to really believe that the product is as solid as it is, as their marketing is, right? So we want to make sure it stands up to the test. And so, they were having us try the product out, and the whole team. I remember even talking to one of the team members at the time. They're like, "Dude, you try the Squatty Potty? It's pretty great." It's like, isn't that for like people who have like bowel issues? And it's like, it is, but it also makes going to the bathroom kind of awesome. It's just like an easier, like more seamless experience. And so that's what they realized. It's like these guys were really marketing it for people who had problems with bowel issues, and that it really was just like, this is a better experience for using the bathroom, which like half the world, like more than half the world, like probably like 80% of the world squats to go to the bathroom. They're like, well, duh. But like Americans, because of the way we have use our Western like countries just use the toilet and they don't squat, it's just not as enjoyable of an experience. And so that was like the big turning point, is they shifted this from a small niche market to like a wide market. And just then they went nuts with like the, obviously the humor and the concepting around it, like really is what I think made it explode. One other aspect I'll speak on, and then we can move on. Sorry, I'm taking too long on this, Ken. But I think one of the biggest challenges that Squatty Potty had before this was talking about like poop in a way that like didn't just put a huge like damper on the mood of like the people watching it. Like sometimes they were like showing Tootsie Rolls, or they were showing things that were like proxies for poop that were just still like too close to poop. And so that was a huge thing. It was like, how do we find a proxy that is far enough away, but it doesn't like, it's not confusing or it's not too ambiguous to where it doesn't get the point across. And that's when, Jeffrey and Daniel Harmon came up with the idea of, let's do like ice cream and let's have it be a unicorn instead of a human. Actually, the original concept started out as a Clydesdale on the end of a giant food truck. So it was like a huge horse at first. It was a Clydesdale like unicorn that was going to be pooping out sherbet ice cream. And then they're like, this might be too gross if we have a like lifelike horse. And so they slowly tamed it down to like this cute little cartoon, cartoonic unicorn. And that made it so it was separate enough to where people were like, they got the basic education about the product and its benefits. And it was in a way that wasn't like being like, oh, great, now I have no appetite for my lunch after watching this. It still might have done that to some people. For most people, there was funny enough that they're like, this is amazing. I want to watch this,
I love that. Now, the idea of using a proxy, that's brilliant. Have you applied that to a lot of other products as well? I'm trying to think of one right now, and nothing comes to mind.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's really easy to get lost in this. And we've even fallen prey to this ourselves. We did a commercial for a company called Zero Res, where we had an analogy like where it's like your carpet is so dirty and has all these secrets in it. It's like a soap opera. And so we'd like zoom into the carpet, and there was like the carpet was talking to the homeowner, and it was, but it got really entangled in like, analogy world. And it was like two steps removed from the actual product. And it wasn't nearly as effective. And so we really tried to double down after we had this experience of like, let's find hard, like concrete proxies for things if it's necessary. Otherwise, let's just keep it as grounded into the actual product as humanly possible. So like we actually went back and redid a campaign for them where we, instead of doing the soap opera world, we did a boot test machine where it simulated 6 months of wear, which is a different type of proxy, where it was basically circular pieces of carpet that had like a dispenser of like dirt and like, stuff that would be found in your carpet, and then had actual feet. It kind of looked like a Dr. Seuss machine where it was like stepping on it as it was rotating to simulate carpet being walked on and worn on, and with dirt in there, and then vacuuming. And so we would do this for the equivalent of 6 months worth of wear to see how much better the Zero Res carpet cleaner held up compared to the other carpet cleaners, which left a bunch of residue behind and made the dirt stick to the carpet much longer and easier, got dirtier quicker. So yeah, we try and do proxies as much as possible, because I think it's so easy in advertising, especially when you go big concept, like, because a lot of our stuff is like bigger concepts and kind of like out there ideas. It's so easy to get lost in analogy world. We try and keep it as concrete as possible. And sometimes it has really clever proxy, and sometimes it's just straight up. Like I think Kodiak Cakes is an example where just like, it's just a family that lives in the woods and eats delicious flapjacks. You know what I mean? It's just that's what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember when the Chatbooks ad came out. I was already a subscriber, but I liked it so much. I'm just like, honey, we're gonna get you subscribed too because I love this ad so much, and I feel like they deserve some money for this.
Oh, so you had actually already used Chatbooks at the time?
I was already in it, But then when I saw the ad, I'm just like, I have to buy another subscription because it's that good. So literally, I was already a customer, and then I became a double customer because I had so much respect for the ad, and it was so entertaining. I watched it frame by frame on a few of those spots. I'm just like, how did they do this? Like the arrow scene and a few of these ones where they really did make it feel like a chaotic, like kind of like a Mary Poppins-ish,
that's
feel.
That's a good analogy. Yeah.
Like everything felt magical and chaotic at the same time. And that was pretty epic.
Yeah. Chatbooks was a really fun one. That was like one of the first.
Were you working on that one?
Yeah, that was the first one I came over because I stayed at the Aura Brush company, and it kind of evolved into because its roots in that company was kind of a marketing agency to begin with. Mm-hmm. They sold off the dental, like the actual product, that Aura Brush itself, to Dentech, and then they spun off a bunch of the product or a bunch of the team into its own little agency. And so I was there for probably another year and a half, and then I reached out to Daniel Harmon, who had been my mentor, and was just like, hey man, like I love what you guys are doing. Like I know it's like you and your, it was just a handful of them at the time. Even with Squatty Potty, it was just a very small group of guys. And I'm like, if you ever have an opportunity, like I'd love to come work with you guys again, because I think it was just a lot of fun what we were doing. So that's when I came over on Chatbooks. And that one was really fun because it was originally the Nate Quigley and Vanessa Quigley, who are the founders of the company. They were really hesitant at the time. They're like, gosh, I don't know if because we had done Purple and we had done Chatbooks and Squatty Potty, or excuse me, we had done Purple and we had done Purple and Squatty Potty and I'm trying to remember. Poopery. And they were like, I think this works really well for bathroom humor. I think this works really well for, this mattress thing. Like, but I don't know if it works well for like family photos. And like, we're kind of like a little bit more like heartwarming in our brand. And like at the time, they were very, very like curated. I would say they felt like it was like a Pinterest feed at the time. And so they were kind of like a little hesitant when we kind of came in swinging with some pretty big chaotic jokes. Mallory Everton, the one that wrote the kind of the base script, the original script, she came from a family, I think, of 6 kids, and she was just like, I just wrote my upbringing where our house was like insane, and every like stuff was on fire, things were falling down, kids were getting broken bones like left and right, and she's like, it was just like kind of cathartic, just writing my childhood into a spot. And it was funny because after they got like the first couple versions of the script and they saw the vision, and they're like, oh man, this has like at the core of it has that like vibe that we want to go with, of like parenting is hard and parenting is insane and you're crazy busy and everyone's working and trying to do 1,000 things. Like they kind of grabbed the vision. And then I remember Nate, to his credit, Nate Quigley, he pulled me aside. He's like, you know what? Like, I want to take this up to 11, man. Like, let's crank this up to 11. So we actually he gave us kind of like free reign.
And this is before you ever shot anything. It was just like a storyboard stage.
Yeah, I think we were on the storyboard stage when he said this to me, because we sent over Automatics to our clients on like our big campaigns, and he's like, I want this to crank this up to 11. So like that's when we went back and had another writing day where we're like, what are the areas we can really push this a little bit to like the edge of like believability? And that's where that's where the crossbow came in, that's where jumping off the roof came in, and like we just made Jeffrey the little kid just like a tornado, like just a disaster, just like always causing chaos. And I think that, like, to his credit, like we were trying to hold back a little bit, but when he gave us permission to like, let's go for it, it was really able to, I think, amplify the video and make it a genuine like knockout success for him.
And how connected are you guys to the marketing and the sales process after the video is produced? Do you like run like short test segments and then adjust the creatives? And like you do? Okay, tell me about that, because I know the production itself is one thing, and it's not like Hollywood where you launch it out and you do maybe like one focus group and then it goes to the world. With online, there's a lot more control. Tell me about that.
100%. And I think like that's partly why I resonated with what when you spoke at TNC, is because I feel like we have a pretty good sense. We've got a really good group of creative people. We have a great brain trust that like helps us avoid, 99 out of 100 pitfalls as far as like the content goes. But even with a really good brain trust and amazing writers, it's really, really hard to assume exactly what is going to like take off as for in terms of like what the internet's going to react to. I mean, it's just like you said this in your talk, like some videos you think are going to crush it just absolutely tank, and it's just they fall flat on their face. And that, like, if anything I've learned like over the years as a digital marketer, like and content producer, is that like you never assume what's going to hook people. I think you can have like the content after the hook. I think you can get to a place where it's like you should know with a pretty good level of certainty this is content that will resonate with the people you're trying to speak to and reach. But that first like 3 seconds, man, is just like they're like wild animals. It's like the only way I can explain it. It's just like you don't know how they're gonna react. Like sometimes you're like, oh, this is gonna crush it, flops, and this is a stupid intro. This is dumb. I don't even know why we're testing this. And it like absolutely crushes, and you're like, I don't understand the human brain and like just how it like, first glance reactions are so hard to predict. And so when we launch our campaigns, we always have as a kind of a standard, we want to make sure we have at least 4 very different intros on our big videos. And this is something we try and do on any level of content. And that was like kind of our old standard. And now we've even tried to amp it up even more to battle ad fatigue in the campaign. But like we would try and keep like 3 to 4 to very, very minimum. And before we ever did any public posts, we would go out and seed these in small doses to see what the view through rates were, to see what the response were, to see what the click through rates were. And in some cases, when we have really good partnerships and really good integrations with the ad buying team, we've gone as much as like a full quarter and spending like, $100,000 of spend to really dial in all the different pieces of content to get them honed in. So then when we go out the gate with like, when we put pedal to the metal and they're like spending, $5,000 to $10,000 a day on these videos, it's like a machine that's just up and humming and just cruising for them. And it's always, we used to take so when we used to do campaigns back in the day, we would try and handle everything, like basically the content on top of funnel. We would handle the content in the middle of the funnel. We'd handle the actual ad buying, even down to the actual like website funnel down to purchase. Like they would be basically like, we're like, here, go fulfill.
So you built
these
the
orders.
whole marketing system for them at one stage.
For a time. It did cause, it was
that's a lot.
How do we put
that's
this?
a lot.
It's a lot. We have a really great team, and when you have full control over those things and you can move really quickly, it's really seamless. But like one of the things we noticed, it created a huge amount of conflict because there was like, we were always this outside entity that would come in and like, we would work with them, and we would sometimes take over someone's job for several months, and we'd be doing the ad buying for it exclusively, and we'd be doing the funnel building. And they have, most of these companies, unless they're very, very small, have like a dedicated website developer who's working on their funnel. They have a dedicated ad buyer or at least a contractor. And so it created a lot of tension, I would say, just because there was always like, a competing feeling between our ad buyer versus your ad buyer, our website guy. So we've tried to take it more of a collaborative approach, kind of like I was talking about with Kodiak Cakes, right? Where they have a huge company. It's they have nationwide distribution. They have a really big team of people who are really solid and strong. And so we just try to bring in our expertise where we can and help out. And advise on the funnel, advise on the ad buying and the launch of the campaign. That's like the one area we still like, we really encourage our clients, like if you'll allow us to, we really would like to do the launch, because the launch is where, and testing is where campaigns either succeed or fail. And we want to ensure you have the best chance of success. And so if we can handle that launch, the likelihood, or at least be very, very heavily involved in advising you how to launch this, the chance of success goes up quite a bit. And I know you test a bunch with your agency, and like the power of testing, because you could say sometimes when people like would like get back to us and they would be like, this content didn't work. It's like, well, what'd you test it? It's like, well, we put $60 towards this ad set and it didn't convert. I'm like, your average customer acquisition cost is like 55. You know, like you're killing me, Smalls. Like, like. So anyway, I mean, I'm sure you know that like process and like testing is so critical. It's like the
It's
lifeblood of
everything.
being able to make a campaign work. You know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'm really curious about something here. Now that we're talking about this data and stuff like that, are there situations where you're doing a performance plus cost type of arrangement with your customers, or is it mostly just like a straight up agency fee for your services?
We have wavered like kind of back and forth. It depends. And now it's like very much so on a case by case basis. So back in the day, we used to do, we used to basically have like, we do all the ad buying for ads back when we were like taking over the full funnel essentially. And we'd have like a pretty aggressive ad spend fee associated with it. Again, that was something that would, you know, over time like be something that would be a stressor on the relationship. We ultimately felt like it was a better relationship if we could win the services and perform really well and they were really happy with us. And if they weren't, or if they could do it cheaper inside with their ad buyer after the campaign launched, that's great. We'd rather have a better relationship with our clients than make a few extra dollars on the ad spend, is kind of the attitude we had. But like sometimes it makes sense where like they don't have the resources or they're trying to scale like a smaller, small to mid-sized business where they might not have a full-time ad buyer. They might not have capabilities inside to do all these optimization edits and changes to the creative or even ongoing editing of UGC content, where we'll be able to step in and do that for a performance kicker on that. But we only do it until it doesn't make sense for them. And we try and be very cognizant of that, because as soon as it doesn't make sense for them, and as soon as like they feel like we might be a burden to them, like then we've lost, right? As an agency, we've stopped being additive to them, and we become a problem and a stumbling block to the progression of their agency, even if it's like a perceived like stumbling block, right? So we really try and build those things to the client's needs and where they're at, because like some people like we did, with like Vivint, we did a huge campaign for Vivint, right? And Vivint's $1 billion company. And it's like, they don't need to do performance. They've got, huge marketing budgets. They can check at us and just be like, sure, give it a whack, right? For fee for services, they're not going to do, something that can scale like to crazy performance levels. And so we try and be really cognizant of where they're at and build it to that. Because we've done rev shares, we've done equity deals with people, because that's just where they are at and what makes most sense for their business. We try not to go outside of that scope, because if that doesn't work for their business and it just if it cripples their business with the arrangement they have for us, then we've lost and haven't done our job to help them grow.
Perfect. That's what I expected. It's case by case. Everybody's different. I want to go into seeing if we can, because you were the creative director, is there anything you could share with business owners, especially in the education and coaching business, that will help them to think differently about how they create content? And the reason I'm saying it this way instead of like a specific tip or something is because I think you could give a hack, a tip, a framework or something, and it'll work once, but then, you can't apply it across the board. But, I see that you have a philosophy that guides all the creatives you make in your business that leads to the success that you've had and continue to have. Is there anything like that you can share to business owners when they're thinking about their social media?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different maxims that kind of guide our creative philosophy. One of the biggest ones, because people always ask us like constantly, because we're kind of known for our long form content, and we've been able to buck the trend, where
but then you also
repurpose
that into short form as well, don't you?
Correct. Yeah, we absolutely have. Now we made it like super versatile with trying to like write scripts so we can break it down into like super tight modules that have like they're totally independent. But yes, like we always get the question like how long should our commercials be? Like that's like always a very common question, because they're like, well, yours are like 3 to 5 minutes. That's so long. And I think we always go back to that kind of philosophy of the YouTube skip button, is that we're disrupting someone's, like, because we deal in all paid media, by the way. I can get back into that a little bit. There's always a viral component to our videos, but most of it, I would say 80% of our views historically are paid media views. And so we're disrupting people's, viewing behaviors. And so we always think to ourselves, like, how are we going to engage these people? How are we going to entertain them? How are we going to earn their eyeball time, like watching us? And then what we always answer to people when they ask us that, we say, make the ad as long as it needs to be and not a second longer. Because if you go a second longer and people are like, bored, I'm over this. And that's like, it's hard to say like when that is, but like if an ad feels long to us when we're watching it, or a piece of content feels long, it's like it's going to feel like a million years to the viewer. And so it's like you've got to be like, you don't want those lulls in your commercial. And like one of the things that we always love is when a joke hits super hard, don't linger on it. Like just blaze right past it. Like just it's like you just take it in stride, because if you linger on it, it's like, wasn't that funny? You know, they're kind of like looking around. It's like, give us some laughter, you know, and it ruins the momentum of
that only works if you're a comedian on a stage where people would have to, stand up and walk out the room to skiff. But nowadays,
exactly.
Quarter of an inch. No, it works if you have a physical audience, not if you don't. Like that's
And I think too, there's this weird effect because we do a lot of like testing when we have our big campaigns where we like actually go film people watch our ads, and we'll do what's called a laugh graph, where like how big of a laugh are we getting at different beats of the joke and different beats throughout the ad. And if there's too big of a lull, we'll be like, guys, we have 25 seconds where we don't even have like a smirk from our viewers. We got to either rearrange this so we can pull some of the stuff later in the video in between these two spikes, because if it's really important content that like has to be in there, let's figure out a better place to do it, or let's cut it down to where we can have, less than 10 seconds between good laughs, right? And so for us, we're always thinking about how can we earn the viewer's attention, because that's all that matters is earning their attention and getting them further down the sell, because we really like to take people from like 0 to as far down the path to being sold as humanly possible. The longer they watch, the further they're going to get down there.
Amazing. One of the breakthroughs I had, and this was a while ago, is I actually rented this service where they do eye tracking on mobile devices for videos. So they heat map people's eyes, and I was amazed at where people's eyes went. I did not realize, but it was when I was able to discover, like there's the first line above the video. And this is before when all the videos, they had the wide format inside the square. Now it's kind of different. But one of the key places people went to at around the 15-second mark was the play bar. How many minutes are left? And that is when I was just like, okay, I know the ideal time now. As soon as their eyes go there, it's when I need to insert a reason for them to keep watching. And, just these little things, just measuring where people's attention is amazing. But I love what you did. You just film people's faces. When are they reacting? and how can you roll one into the other, right?
That was like the poor man's version of that service. You said, we're just like, we'll just go like walk up to random people. That's better,
because
like,
I couldn't see their expressions.
Record you? Yeah. I mean, it was really and we still do this. It's like, we'll just go grab an intern and be like, okay, I want you to go to the local mall and give people like $10 in Amazon gift cards to watch a 5-minute video and just record their honest reaction and ask a couple of questions afterwards. That's brilliant. It's like guerrilla, style, like marketing, information.
And then you leave the audio on so you know what part it is, right? Even if you're just filming their face.
Yeah, exactly. We'll kind of map it out. But yeah, it's like, it's not super scientific, but we've seen that's like better, versions though, where we've tested that it works really, really well. You know what I mean? It's because I think it's so easy to like forget that there's people on the other sides of the screens watching them. You know what I mean? It's so easy to get lost in like a Google dashboard or a Facebook dashboard and viewer retention graphs, and like it can't represent all the data, like the data there that doesn't actually represent everything that the consumer's experiencing. And so that's another thing too, is like, I think it's so easy to get disconnected from your audience. And like, we try and talk a lot to our core audience of whoever we're trying to reach, whether it's, a mom who is maybe thinking about maybe buying a chatbook, or whether it's, a guy that is trying to find a shaving tool for for his bald head that's easier and simpler. Just going and actually talking to people in a very casual way and just asking their honest thoughts is super underrated. And I think it's super underutilized, mostly because it's kind of a pain in the butt to do. And it takes a lot of effort. And it's like socially, like it's like not socially unacceptable, but it's also like I don't want to be that guy. It's always bugging people. It's easier to look at a Facebook dashboard versus just like get my hands dirty and go talk to some people about this thing and get some honest feedback about it.
Or hire interns to do it for you.
Or hire interns. Yeah, I don't do it now, but like, yeah, just get in there and talk to the people. You know,
two things come to mind right now. Number one, if you look at Mr. Beast's videos, what he does every 2 minutes used to be like used to be worth a 30-minute video. And like you said, don't linger. He does like $1 million production in 2 minutes. And then he just goes to the next thing. And you don't even have time to catch your breath. That's the pace people are going at these days. And the second thing that comes to mind is, I just lost it. We're talking about, it's going to come back to me later. But when you're talking about the reactions that people have, right? Facial reactions. I think that nothing beats that. There's all these trends nowadays where people are sharing reels with their spouses, right? And, people joke about that. But you share it, and then you have this desire for them to either react, to your comment, or if they're sitting across the living room from you, you want to see them, giggle or snigger, and if they do that, that's pure satisfaction right there. I'd pay $100 if I could make that happen every single time. So you're curating that stuff, but you're doing that on a much larger scale. You're just like, okay, I want to make, 20,000 people, 100,000, 1 million people snicker right at this little point here, having that connection moment. And I love how we can scale that up.
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, I like will bother my wife. Like she'll be at a work meeting. I'm like, did you see the thing I sent you? You see the reel?
Yes.
It was pretty good. You should go check it out. She's like, I'm working, and I'm like, yeah, but come on, like you're on mute. You could go watch that reel.
Yes.
So I'm very guilty of that today. For sure. Oh, 100%. I'm like, it's so funny. It's like, we're in bed, it's like 11 o'clock and we're just laughing and sending crap back and forth. We're literally a foot apart in bed. It's just, it's a weird phenomenon. I'm glad we're all able to acknowledge this as a society. That like, we all know we're doing this. We all know we're sending this to each other.
One of the things I suggest to my clients when they're planning their short form content is, if you want to know what your audience actually is interested in watching, then we have to stop assuming that we're separate from them, that we're smart and we're controlling them, like we're designing the rat maze and they're the rat in the maze. No, we're the same as them. So in order to connect with them, I'd say the first thing to do is look at your private messages. Look at the most recent 10 video clips you ever shared, and then go watch them again, and then write down, why did you share those? And I believe it's for several reasons. Number one, it's a shared experience. Number two, it's my favorite, is you're trying to tell them something like, hey, buy me a ring, please, or hey, clean up the house, or hey, fill up the gas tank every now and then, right? You're trying to tell them something. Or, the last one is, it's a shared experience, something that you both feel was an inside joke, but you're like, oh, they're experiencing it too. Therefore, I feel connected in an uncanny way. And I think you could take those 3 reasons why you share, and then stop trying to assume that you're smarter and telling people what to do. Instead, do what you would do, have them do what you would do in the same situation. And then all of a sudden it up levels the way you communicate to your audience, because we're no longer separate. We're the same, sharing the experience with them.
Yeah, I think that's 100% accurate. Cause we try and write scripts, and a lot of the writing team that we've cultivated over the years, like we try and write scripts that make us want to buy the products, right? Not what we think will tick, this, this, demographic, or this, certain audience in a certain way. It's like, let's make something that's compelling to us, that really represents our experience with the product. And when we do that in an interesting and engaging way, more often than not, it works. Like you said, I think too, it's like, I think one of the things that works so well on Chatbooks, just to go back to that example, is it felt very authentic and it felt very real to people's experience as being parents. And so it didn't feel like we're a company telling you why you should like us. It was more like, hey, we're part of this joint experience that's insane, this insane experience called like parenthood, that's just chaos. Like, that's why we made the product, because life is already too insane to try and do scrapbooks and photo books that take forever to format on, Shutterfly or whatever. Here's the super simple way. And I think that core message of like, I don't have enough time. I don't have time to do that crap. That's essentially, if you took the whole commercial and like scrunched it down, it's like, I don't have time to make photo books. I'm too busy, man. Like, so shut up or tell me how to do this faster. Like that's kind of like the vibe. And I think that was such an honest like take. And like you said, it was this shared cathartic experience as parents being like, it's so true. Like, it's freaking hard to find time to do anything because you're taking kids to soccer, kids are breaking arms, kids are just insane. They're just always asking you to do things or drawing on their faces, And so that like really struck a nerve with them. And I think when they have that shared experience, they bond with the brand and they bond with like the product in a deeper way that they would have, other than like, hey, here, let me just show you the utility of this in the most like straightforward, straight to the point way possible. Because that's like, yeah, it gets the message across, but it doesn't like have them emotionally bond with the brand and like be like, these guys get me. They built this product because they understand my life and they understand where I'm coming from and why I would value something like this. I feel like that's a different level of conversion other than just the strict utility of a given product.
Shane, I'm going to be a little bit selfish right now. And I want to ask you a question that, well, okay, let's see how this goes. What you just described there about like, hey, here's how this works and here's the utility of the product. That is the only way I've been selling my product, the Go Box Studio, so far, which is a brand new, product to the market. It's still very it's just barely a year old. How else do you think I could be communicating it so that I connect with people on a different level than just here are all the functions? Because it's been working okay so far, and I'm glad we're not selling more than we are, because we'd have a hard time keeping up. We don't have a huge operation yet, but we're going to get there, and we're going to need to reach a wider audience and connect with more people in more ways. Can you give me some pointers around that?
Yeah, 100%, man. Well, first off, I think you got a phenomenal product. I mean, just the novelty of it is so cool. Like, you got to step up on other people like that are even kind of competitors, because there's not really a competitor what you built at least that I've been able to see on the marketplace. So that's like a huge advantage. And like when we're looking for clients, we're like, novelty and like how unique it is in the marketplace is a big factor. It's one of the biggest factors we look at in terms of like, should we partner with these people? So I think you got to step up there for sure, where the utility demonstration does work really, really well. I think the other thing too, though, is like what you built is essentially, something that was solving a problem for yourself, and having like that story for like being able to keep up with content at the pace what it's demanding right now in the marketplace is insane. Like, it's like, I look at some content creators and I'm like, I don't know how you guys don't have nervous breakdowns, because you're freaking making so much content like on a daily basis that like when they're posting like 3 videos a day, I'm like, how the freak do you eat? Like, when do you have time to sleep? When do you have time to do anything else besides make content? But I think there is like some major anxiety for people that always feel like I'm not doing enough or I'm not making enough content, where that like the product like that you made, the Go Box, just solves that, or takes a huge chunk of that away, where it's like I can be up and running and recording in almost no time, like compared to setting up a camera, setting up a lights or whatever like that, like pulling it apart and putting it together like every single time, or finding a good place to film. You bring the good place to film and all the equipment with you like that. So I think that there's some level of anxiety you can tap into on an emotional level, where people, like whether it's coaches or whether it's content creators themselves or whether it's brands, like everybody feels this anxiety of like, I am not doing enough and I don't know how to get on top of it. Because if you can help them say like, okay, well, I'm going to take one big chunk, which is like the production side of this, and make it so stupid simple that you can just walk in and do it. And it's a big chunk of that anxiety I can basically just squash instantly. And so that to me, just when I see your product, that's in my mind. It's like, oh my gosh, that's so much less stressful. I mean, even today, like setting this up, because we have a shoot today. And I've done stuff with like Harmon Brothers University. And so I know how to do a lot of this stuff. And I did a lot of freelance, like camera or shooting and stuff like that. So I have the knowledge, but I was like, shoot, I don't have the right USB connector. I got to go to freaking Best Buy on my lunch break and go buy this mini HDMI port because I left it at home. It's like, and it's like, because all these people are on a shoot in the office that would normally help me set up like on our podcasting space. So it's like even just like stuff like that, where if you're missing one little piece, it like throws your day. Like I just had today. And there's like some level of like, shoot, am I going to be behind? Am I going to have enough time to go do all this stuff? That's all alleviated so quickly with like the product you built, because it's just like, you can't screw it up. It's all right there for you. You know what I mean? So I think that it's like tapping into anxiety.
Simplicity,
so solid.
anxiety.
Yeah. Cause like, I don't know, I feel it all the time. I feel it like for our clients, I feel it for me. Like I feel it for like our social media, like, and posting stuff. It's just like, that is the insatiable content monster that is modern TikTok, Instagram Reels, and YouTube Shorts. It's just like, it's a like endless beast just devouring content. And it's like, that's kind of intimidating. You know what I mean? That's a big hurdle to overcome. And you've made a really good product to do that.
Well, thank you for that. I'm going to watch this back, take down a bunch of notes, and see if we can improve our messaging around that. I just want to close, Shane, with, is there anything else that you can add to somebody who's, especially in the, well, let's just say they're around the $1 million mark in their business, and they probably can't afford you, but they want to emulate you in some way, and but they want to do it on their own. Do you recommend that they go look at your stuff and then pick up ideas from there? Or do you recommend that they just, test everything and then expand on what's working, or something else in between?
I think I would always definitely say, like, whatever you do, test. Like, testing is like, you can't, like, assuming you know what's going to work, you're going to fail. Like, period. Like, there's no debate about that, because like, unless you're, actually, no, even the smartest people, I was trying to think of anyone that was just like a genius, like you, like, I've never met anyone that was like always just nailed it every time without some level of testing. The most successful marketers I've met have been people who are religious testers. They live and die by it. But they also don't let, and I think this is important, they don't let what's actually unique about them, their product or service or their personality, get devoured by data. I think that that's like something that's really easy to chase data. We have a saying here at Harmon Brothers that we like to say, like, often, to try and make sure we're not going down this hole. Like, all over optimized roads will lead to spam. And like, none of us, when we're building a brand or building our individual coaching services or our products, none of us want to be the brand that everybody's like, oh, I've seen that crap. They just spam the crap out of me. Nobody wants to be identified like that, because if you're building a product or a service, you're putting your heart and soul into that product, and you want people to see the vision that you have, or the benefit that it brought you, or the amazing solution to a huge problem you had. And so you don't want to devolve your marketing into what people perceive as spam. And in that same vein, I think for us, like, developing the unique tone and the unique kind of personality of a brand is critical. And that sometimes can be the founder. Oftentimes, if it's like a coaching service, or if it's, something that's based on someone's personality, it's kind of has to be that person. But it doesn't have to be that person. You can develop that personality and capture it through other people, whether it's like finding the right influencers or right content creators to represent your brand. Because a lot of these founders don't have like the desire to be on YouTube. They have a great product, they have a great service, but they don't want to be the face of the camera. So I think there's different ways you can get the personality infused in the brand. But like for me, and I think like developing long-term brands that have longevity, that people have not only derived utility from, but also have an emotional connection to, is it's so important to have personality. Like I talked about that Chatbooks example, like, they get me, I get them. I love watching their stuff because I resonate on more than one level. It's multiple levels, the utility as well as the, like, we're just vibing as a brand and as a consumer. And I think that's like something that's one thing I will say I have some like hesitation in the marketplace right now, because it's so, I think especially with AI, there I think is a huge risk to over optimize to spam very, very easily, because the tool is so powerful, and without like good constraints and good kind of vision for what you want to do with your brand, I think it's really easy to go down that route. And so I would say make sure you know who you are as a brand and what makes you special and why you want to say what you want to say. And you can still use things like ChatGPT and other AI tools, but like make sure you know who you are before you go do those tools, because you don't want to be that brand. Nobody wants to be that brand. I know you don't want to be that brand. Everybody who has the product they love, they don't want to become the thing that they dread seeing an email or dread seeing a retargeting ad where like, ugh, these guys again, I roll. You know what I mean? That's like that'd be like my worst nightmare. Like, I don't want that for anything I work on to be that case.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I think that's super solid advice, and we'll see how AI pans out long term. If how much it may be regulated, or how much people are really going to be embracing it, and how human it can become.
I just posted this on LinkedIn the other day, and maybe you cut this, Ken, because this feels like it's like giving a toddler a gun when I say this, but like I saw we always are trying to see how close we can get it to humor, because obviously like for us, like persuasive long form sales letters, like I feel like ChatGPT has already got that like in 3.5, and I was testing out like how do we get it to really extract good solid humor. And so I was testing it out, saying like, give me a specific, like a simile based joke, comparison joke, for this type of product in the voice of a specific comedian. And it was shocking, Ken. It was like alarming. And I'm like, whoa, I'm not going to publish this in a script. I'm not going to go do this like in one of our ads. But I was like, this is crazy, because it wasn't something, I did it with Bill Burr, but like, it wasn't something Bill Burr had ever said.
So technically it's yours.
So technically I could probably get away with it, but there's something on like the intellectual like theft side of like, I feel like we hacked his brain, like his neural pathways and how he would construct a joke and deconstructed it and put it together in the context of what I needed. And it was one of those things where it's like, that is kind of crazy, man. Like that feels borderline like a gray area as far as intellectual property, and stealing someone's like comedic voice. And like for us, like we still hire like full-time comedians to write our ads. And I feel like they are so valuable in that process, because it's so much easier to teach a comedian to be a marketer rather than a marketer to be like an amazing comedian. And so like for me, I really value comedians like in our voice in our ads, but it's like one of those things with AI was like, oh my gosh, like this is genuinely kind of alarming to me. And I'm like, I agree. I'm like, who knows how this is going to pan out? Is it going to be regulated? How much is going to be regulated? How is it going to be regulated? How are they going to, monitor it? It's like Pandora's box, man. I feel like we're at like, web 1.0 of the AI revolution. Like we like the ramifications.
A lot of people compare it to like when the cotton gin was invented, or when the automobile was invented, because so many jobs were lost, but then humanity adjusted and then progressed a lot because of it. But then there are people saying, no, this is way different, because general AI will literally be able to replace every single human function in a short amount of time if it goes at this trajectory. So, I mean, I'm not really, I don't go too deep there. I know Elon is big on that. He talked a lot about that. But the only thing we can do is wait and see and adjust as we can, right?
Yeah. And try and be like I don't know. I think like just try
learn
and be
as
a
you go,
responsible
obviously.
student. Yeah. And like that's the thing. Like we try and like stay like in tune with it, but also like try and be a responsible steward. Like I would say, just like don't be like, just not to quote like Jurassic Park, but I think this all the time. Like that you're so excited that you didn't stop to think if you should. Like is like a like I think you should stop to think if you should, like when you use AI, and it's like use it smartly and not like recklessly just because you can. I think is like it's so hard to competitive environment where everybody's like trying to vie for that like competitive edge, you know what I mean? But it's like, man, there's some part of me that freaks me out. So use it responsibly.
Yeah, there you go.
Anyway.
There you go. Well, who knows? Maybe it'll just help us agency owners retire faster. getting
Yeah,
AI
maybe in that
we
case, I'm okay with the
clone our
apocalypse coming
brain
10 years
to
sooner.
do it for us. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right,
Well,
Shane,
cool,
this
man.
was a lot of fun speaking with you. If somebody wanted to reach out or to, potentially work with your company, what's the best place for them to reach out and find more information about you?
Yeah, thanks for that plug, man. I think just going to harmonbrothers.com, and then we've got a kind of an intake lead form, which just kind of ask some questions about your business. We really try and partner with the right people that are the right stage for scaling up their business. Just fill that out, and we get in contact with people really, really quick. Or you can reach out to us on our social media channels. We monitor those pretty closely when people reach out to us. So, yeah, and I think there is a misnomer. Like we used to do only gigantic campaigns. Now we work with companies in all different sorts of sizes and scale, just because, we see a huge amount of potential in like small to medium sized businesses, not in companies that have huge VC funding. So like I said, we really like to adapt our offerings to where people are at, wherever we can add value.
Perfect. Well, guys, make sure you check out all the links. I'm also going to link down inside of the show notes and on YouTube my favorite Harmon Brothers ads, because I think there are 4 that come to mind right away. I'm going to put those there because I hope that if you haven't watched it yet, you'll enjoy it. And if you already have, you'll enjoy the rerun. All right, Shane, thank you so much. And
hey, thanks so much, Ken. This was a blast.
Bye for now.
Yeah.
And for everybody else,
man.
I'll see you next week.
No hustle, worship here, we're a different breed. Action is what we got if action is what you need. Content capitalist, we're breaking the mold. Cause the old ways fading, new stories to be told. So content capitalist, get to the prize.
This is the Content Capitalist Podcast, and my name is Ken Okazaki. There are as many ways to make money with content as there are people doing it. So listen in as my clients, past, present, and future, unpack how they crack the code to making $1 million a year or more while capitalizing on their content. Let's get started.